Welcome everyone, readers and listeners to the third annual Poetry Ritual. I'm Michael Favala Goldman. I'm a poet and a translator of Danish literature, and I will be our moderator for tonight's reading. We have 20 authors queued up and ready to entertain and inspire us with their poems. So the Poetry Ritual, this event, is the group reading of the Poetry Critique Meetup, which is a project I created in 2018 with the co-sponsorship of Straw Dog Writers Guild and the Northampton Center for the Arts. So Straw Dog is a Western Massachusetts nonprofit that provides workshops, readings, open mics, fellowships, and residency opportunities to writers of all kinds. And the Northampton Center for the Arts at 33 Hawley in Northampton is a hub for arts of all kinds in Western Massachusetts. It's a venue where artists and people who appreciate art can hold events, can participate in and attend theater, dance, music, visual art, writing, and hybrid events. The center is also the home of the Eli Daniel Nemitz Todd Memorial Fund, which financially supports the activities of our Poetry Critique Meetup. And I want to now present Kelly Silliman, who's the program director for the Center of the Arts, to say a few words about the Eli Fund. So Kelly, passing off to you.
Thank you so much, Michael. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited I wasn't able to be present last year, so it's really exciting to be able to be here with you all today. As Michael said, I'm the program director for the Northampton Center for the Arts at 33 Hawley. And I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that 33 Hawley sits on unceded Nipmuc, Pecumtuck, and Nonotuck land. And this year we have committed to paying, along with the people that we work with, an Indigenous land tax to the Nipmuc Indian Development Corporation. I have lots more that I could say about that, but I'm actually just going to go ahead and put a link in the chat if you are interested in knowing more about that. And you can find that there. Yes, so the mission of the Center for the Arts is to provide affordable space for artists, performers, educators, while also developing programming that's dedicated to arts education, multidisciplinary collaborations, and community connections. Or in simpler terms, we're here to help community members turn artistic and creative dreams into reality. And about 4 or 5 years ago, one of those dreams was the Poetry Critique Meetups, which we now present in collaboration with Straw Dog Writers Group. And this has become one of our most robust writing programs. It's really, really exciting. As many of you know, twice a month, poets gather to read and critique each other's works. And these workshops have inspired us to start offering short prose meetups over the past year. These programs would not be possible, or at least they wouldn't be as accessible, without the support of the Eli Daniel Nemitz Todd Memorial Fund. Eli was a young local writer and poet who passed away in 2016, and this fund subsidizes a number of writing programs at the center. As an independent artist myself and an arts programmer, I cannot overstate the gift that this fund offers us. We are able to fairly compensate talented, experienced writing teachers and facilitators, thank you, Michael, while also keeping the cost for participants extremely low. If you are moved by the poetry you hear tonight, and I know you will be, please consider making a donation to the fund in Eli's honor. I'm going to post payment options and links in the chat, and I just want to thank you again for being here with us this evening, and enjoy the reading.
Thank you, Kelly. It's a pleasure working with you and making this program a success. And I hope that everyone will consider making a donation to the Eli Fund. And to kind of bring Eli into our circle this evening, I'm going to read one of his poems. This is Community Service by Eli Todd. Pedro Jimenez spent 8 months in the county prison for a crime he did not feel like telling me about. While the supervisor was gone, we smoked cigarettes in the stairwell. We were supposed to be shoveling snow down to the basements of the housing projects. He says a guy he worked with did 15 years and forgot how to open doors. When he got out, he'd walk right up to them, totally normal, and bam, just stop. Wait for someone to open it for him. Pedro is 30 or 40 years older than me, and shoveling the snow is killing his back. We take our time smoking. The supervisor pronounced the J in Jimenez the English way during roll call. Jimenez. He says prison wasn't so bad, mostly boring, but the food was great. Once, though, he saw one man gouge out another man's eye with his bare hands. Pedro pretended not to see. He just kept reading his book. So our gratitude goes out tonight to Eli's family, who started the Eli Fund in his memory and allows us to extend the writing community and keep it strong. It's been my honor and pleasure to direct and moderate the Poetry Critique Meetup, now entering its 5th year. The meetings are open to all kinds of poets. The suggested donation is $10, but thanks to the Eli Fund, no one is turned away. Each writer shares their poem and gets feedback following a supportive and constructive format. Some of the poems you hear tonight have been discussed in the meetup. And some of our poets are veterans of many poetry readings. Others are reading in public this evening for the very first time. The chat is open. Feel free to write your supportive comments in between the 5-minute readings if you can, to help keep distractions to a minimum. And that's it for me. Everyone, please keep yourself muted until the very end, and each poet will unmute themselves as their turn comes and I call their name. And so now we move on to our poets. Our first reader is Stephanie B. Shafran, who is a member of Straw Dog Writers Guild and also Florence Poet Society. She lives in Northampton, writes poetry and prose, and she published her first poetry chapbook, Awakening, in 2020. This is it right here. And so let's welcome Stephanie Shafran.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks for the opportunity to participate in this year's poetry ritual, one of my favorite annual poetry readings. As creator of the Poetry Critique Meetup, since 2018, you have demonstrated a talent, both as its facilitator and as a sensitive critic of poetry. Your gentle, down-to-earth manner quickly puts participants at ease and invites community building with every session. What follows is a perceptive, honest, and thorough discussion of each member's mission. Like others at your poetry meetups, I have always felt affirmed and respected as a poet. Straw Dog is fortunate to have these twice-monthly meetups in its programming. Tonight, I'm going to read a series of haikus and tankas. Except for the last haiku, I worked with already written poems and revised each as one of these 2 Japanese poetic forms. The process of shrinking poems by a specific line and syllable count was a surprisingly enjoyable challenge for me. Among these poems, you'll hear a few in both the haiku and tanka forms that originated from the same poem. After reading each title, I'll pause briefly before beginning with the poem's first line. Here are the haikus. Mockery. Those useless baubles, scorching glitter of tinsel, mockery of joy. Home. Familiar at last, sanctuary of spirit, finally found, home. Wrestling. Fledgling poet speaks, wrestles with muffled silence, reveals her journey of truth. After the brawl. Crooked, angry, blind, mockery of shade, thief-like light slips into our bedroom. And here's the last haiku. Vision, proud peacock in pink, floating on September's breeze, lone water lily. And here are the tankas. Hacked. Useless trinkets hang from each sagging Christmas bough. Tinsel and baubles mock their holiday joy, hacked from this family too soon. Prayer far from home. I watch you struggling toward April's resurrection, eyes lifted skyward, half blind at 96, whispering, "Ay de mi, Señor." Recovering. Ironing once more, creases smoothed from shirts and brain, disk of dark brown earth outside meets my goggling eye, imagining colors instead. Mandate. Stern narcissists warn, best muffle your fledgling voice. Wrestling fear and shame, mandate of silence ignored, long hidden truths speak aloud. And the last tanka, amends. Bruised pears, skin mottled, darkened to maroon, discarded, then retrieved by you, one cut into 4 wedges and offered on white napkin. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stephanie. You remind me how poetry differs from ordinary conversation, because every word has to be carefully chosen. Every word matters. Every word needs to fit into the line with its neighbors. So thank you for those. Our next poet is Martha McCullough, who lives in Amherst, Massachusetts. Her collection of poems, Wolf Hat, Iron Shoes, is new in 2022. It was published by Lily Poetry Review Books, and this is I've got a copy of it right here that I'm reading right now. So please welcome Martha McCullough.
Thank you, Michael. It's wonderful to be here and to get to hear some of the poems that people have worked on in our group. Here's one now. It's called Bookish House. Beneath the floorboards, even the rats composing its memoirs on the backs of my ancient homework. Blotty blue cursive, listing kinds of coal, anthracite, bituminous, lignite, a diagram sentence, chief exports of South America, nuns, red pencil, blah, 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 my childish diligence. No one cares about any of that, thinks the rat correctly. A baleful star. I broke all the thin bone china cups, also the saucers. I discovered the dry spaciousness of giving shit up. Goodbye, coffee, bourbon, butter. Hello, Ezekiel bread. I wanted not to care and didn't. My luxury was ridding. I didn't learn to wait. Outside in the flood, one of everything bobs past. Farewell to the doomed chair, the drowning television. Things look so desirable washing away. Sodden paper bouquet. All signs say, flee to the mountains, woe to the mortgagees. Say, this is the day when everything in your house, and then your house. Disputed territories. The night, massive, light-winged, a vacancy carried on the air. Lantern, little device of beauty, behind a wall pocked with shell holes. The cards keep my creepy secrets. minor romance with death, desires, embarrassments. Between a pack of cards and pack of wolves, choose wolves at a distance, howling with the ruined piano as the tanks approach. Pinwheel of sparks, the velocity and the sensation. I wrote a group of poems that are based on detective stories and the tropes. Some are hard-boiled, some are girl detectives. This is called Aging Out. From behind a limp curtain, the elderly girl detective sees through a row of windows, a hand petting a cobra, a woman's shadowy profile, a small stuffed alligator on a velvet cushion. Clues to what? The secret of life and death is only the clock. Down a long linoleum corridor, a door clicks shut. Evening light, slanted, yellow. She keeps her deductions private, a silence filled up with land sakes, imaginary pie in the cold oven. Ghost granny in worn print dress in favorite chair. Who is in charge? And this is called True Crime. They say there's no winning. It's Mantown, forget it. In the sway of passing girls, you're one. River of girls things happen to, maybe in the dark parking garage, running up flight after flight in tall shoes to the moonlit roof. Was it a footstep or the fear you know by heart? Funny you never catch a girl with a row of heads in the fridge, a basement of bones. And this is the last poem. It's called As Far as This World Goes. Everything almost not here, a bubble burst to mist. Still, I get out of bed, go to work for decades, though it has come to my attention that I will die. I should have tunneled out. I had my spoon. The days slipped by, just keeping the atoms organized, padded into the shape of a body until, undone by some bungle, the structure gives way, like a balsa wood bridge tested to failure, reverting to prior condition as pile of sticks. Thanks.
Thank you, Martha. That was really entertaining, hearing what the rat was thinking. And I felt like at that one with the detective, I felt like I was watching a movie because just all the mood that you were striking there was really, really enjoyable. So thank you. And our next reader is Mary Warren Foulk, who's been published in many places, including Palette Poetry, Silkworm, and Steam Ticket. Her chapbook, If I Could Write You a Happier Ending, was selected by Dancing Girl Press for publication. And her manuscript, Erasures of My Coming Out Letter, won first place last year in Poetry Box's chapbook contest. So please give a warm welcome to Mary Foulk.
Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you for this beautiful evening, and thank you so much for the beautiful community you've created through your poetry critiques. It's wonderful to see you all tonight, and I'm so grateful for the chances to learn with and from you. As I mentioned before, you all have made me a better poet and a better person. Stephanie and Martha, those are stunning words. Thank you so much for your poetry. I'm going to read 3 poems. The first one is called There's Still Time, and it's been workshopped with the poetry critique group. It might be familiar to many of you. And it begins with a quote from Austin Kleon from his Steal Like an Artist. I want you to have that in your head as I read this. It's one of my theories that when people give you advice, they're really just talking to themselves in the past. You won't have a choice. Boys chase girls. The broken leg wasn't your fault. He pushed you down the slide. A simple refusal you might be allowed just once. The predation will continue, even when you're middle-aged and deplumed. Don't succumb to the white dress. Alert the others. There's still time to scavenge you. My next poem is new. It's an experiment. Michael and I have been corresponding some lately about erasures, and I'm going to do an erasure of E. E. Cummings' I Carry Your Heart With Me. I'll read the original, and then I'll read my erasure response. I carry your heart with me. I carry it in my heart. I am never without it. Anywhere I go, you go, my dear. And whatever is done by only me is your doing, my darling. I fear no fate, for you are my fate, my sweet. I want no world, for beautiful, you are my world, my true. And it's you are whatever a moon has always meant, and whatever a sun will always sing is you. Here is the deepest secret nobody knows. Here is the root of the root and the bud of the bud and the sky of a tree called life, which grows higher than soul can hope or mind can hide. And this is the wonder that's keeping the stars apart. I carry your heart. I carry it in my heart. My poem's called Carry My Heart, Carry, Carry. 1. Your heart is the deepest secret I carry. 2. You, my dear, my darling, my true, are the sky of the sky. 3. Never without it, the wonder, keeping the stars apart. 4. Whatever is done, fate has always meant the bud of life. 5. Carry only me, carry, carry my heart. And this last poem is an impressionist poem. It's in response to a line by the poet Xavier Villarrutia. It's called You Might Say. You might say the streets flow sweetly through the night. You might say the lights fade flickering like fireflies. You might say the revelers dream now a midnight iris. You might say their bodies enfold like dewed petals. You might say the dawn stirred them with azure pleas. Thank you.
Wow, that was amazing, Mary. I now we might be able to understand why I say it's such a privilege to run this group, because I get to work with people who write such incredible work. How you took E. Cummings and made it seem like the words could be distilled even more powerfully down by stripping them even more. It was just really powerful. Thank you, Mary. That was amazing. Let me introduce our next author. It's Mary Johnson, who is from Pleasant Hill, Oregon. And much of her writing is influenced by the wild rivers and woods and skies of the Willamette Valley. So it's great to have you here, Mary.
Thank you, Michael. You know, I said it before and I'll say it again. Mary Foulk, you're a hard act to follow. That erasure poem was stunning. Thank you. I have 3 to read today, and these have all had their debut in the group and have been helped greatly by the group's feedback. And, you know, I'm just very, very grateful that my friend Burleigh invited me to join this group. It's been fantastic. All right, I'm going to start with ablutions. When my father was dying, my brother came to Granny's house to shave him. He brought warm water, towels, a razor, and a sweetness I did not know he could afford after all the beatings. When the angel of death sat close to Papa's bed, I watched from a corner of the hospital room. Nurses slathered lotion on his thin, dry legs, a tenderness only possible for him to receive from deep within a morphine coma. I marveled at their easy fondness and apparent unconditional love for Mr. Johnson. All my life, I longed to love him that way, which would have meant embracing a tornado. I was 24, old enough to be living barefoot among the shards of my own choices. I decided to become a nurse, and after 3 decades will reveal it is far easier, an unexpected privilege, to love strangers unconditionally. None of us kids were able to love, so we wouldn't hurt ourselves or others. At almost 60, I decide it's not too late to devote my own healing hands to my worn body, gently calm my ever-vigilant brain, balm my wholly scarred flesh, loving myself like I wasn't shown how. The next one is wrapped. 3 fields over, a juvenile red-shouldered hawk has been calling all summer in a car alarm pattern. Maybe it's begging parents for food. All young birds do, long after fledging. Young hawks are just as likely to die as to thrive their first winter. Hunting is a hard-won skill, even when evolution hones your tools to perfection. What little I know of a raptor's mind is its unapologetic stance on killing. Every time I see a hawk, I say a quick blessing. Happy hunting, friend, full belly. Autumn has broken, yet warm cones of air still rise, pulling them effortlessly skyward. Lying on my picnic table, I see a hawk shrug, way up there. A slight wrinkle of wings to shift course. My red-shouldered neighbor may be one of them, screaming with joy. I would. And the last one is ecstatic dance. Welcome every kind of body to Sunday morning dance church. Tall, painful body on crutches. Diseased body that cannot stand up. Gloriously fat body. Skinny, emaciated body. Brown body. Pink body. Transgender body. Athletic body looking to hoist someone up on a shoulder. Sensitive crying body. Strong, sinewy, older body raring to go, gray hair flying. Chronically ill body twirling slowly on the edges. Handsome body that smoked a joint on its loose-hipped way in, ignoring the rule about not coming to dance high. Yes, there are rules at ecstatic dance. No talking. Other vocalizations are allowed. Respect each other's space. Don't touch people who want to dance alone. Keep an eye out for the young ones, literally underfoot, who don't need to schedule a special time and place for ecstasy. For years, I was afraid to join this gathering, expecting lots of transgressive physical freedom, grandly masquerading as dancing. Yet here I am, the one-breasted wonder, leaping around and over, not staying in my lane, wriggling and shimmering in a galaxy filled with incarnate stars going supernova, cranking out fake ballet moves and ancient grapevine steps, karate kicking the ghost of Lola Coates, my first dance teacher, who carried a black cane and whacked our preteen ankles when we screwed up at the bar. But she could never beat the love of dance out of me. Watch me now. Thank you.
Wow, that was incredible, Mary. You remind me one of the roles of artists and poets to observe intensely what is around us, which I think most people miss. And as an artist, step into the role of reminding people and sharing that with others. So thank you for doing that for us. Our next author is Linda Jo Reinhard, who started writing poetry when the pandemic started to record the emotional impact of history, both global and domestic. One constant in her life, besides writing a daily poem, is growing blueberries in Portland, Oregon. So welcome, Linda Jo Reinhard.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate the kind and supportive guidance you bring to this amazing group of poets. The first poem that I'll read is a page from my childhood. White noise. To obscure abrupt noises that interrupt naps, my mother invokes the high whine of the Kirby upright vacuum cleaner. A wall of sound lulls me to sleep, this energetic drone, my sonic companion. When tall enough to push the Kirby myself, I am enlisted to assist with cleaning. Enveloped in sound, I happily harmonize with the machine. I slide my voice around the drone, under, over, note unity with surprise, then quickly create tension by degrees, over, under, a sonic clearing of the air. In a household where commotion is controlled, your father needs quiet. No singing at the table. The vacuum cleaner is subterfuge. My cells resonate in consonance with a whirring dervish at my feet, a trusted catalyst for bliss. Next, I'd like to step back a generation and share some family history. Earlier this year, my mother asked me, "Did I ever tell you about my cousin Marcus?" This time, I took notes. June 1944. My mother's cousin Marcus from Nebraska came to say goodbye to his uncle's family in New Jersey. Refused a ride into town to catch a bus. Not on a bet. Didn't disclose his destination. This true blue never let a secret slip. History would show he was off to Fort Dix, a member of the infantry deployed to Metz, France via England. For 5 weeks midwinter, he fought the Battle of the Bulge. 19,000 Americans lost their lives. Marcus survived. Injuries kept a rifle out of his hands, put him behind a steering wheel. Reconnaissance from an armored jeep, his peep, modern-day cavalry pushing east into Nazi Germany. On July 11th, 1945, Marcus wrote his folks in Nebraska, excited about gifts for them carefully packed in his duffel bag for coming home. With war's end near, my mother recalls the moment, standing by the radiator, looking out beyond the living room window with her sister and parents as they absorbed the news. Marcus's Jeep had hit a landmine. Her father, a man of few words, simply said, "Poor Marcus." Marcus died the day after he wrote to his family. The duffel bag never made it home. His army records in St. Louis were destroyed by fire in 1973. My mother, at age 89, can still recite his service ID. To close, here's a short poem that zooms out a bit further. The Search. In the interim between conception and disintegration, we search, while continents shift on molten rock and our homeland spins ceaselessly in aqua blue orbit around a ball of fire itself dwarfed by the magnitude and emptiness of space. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda Jo, for putting things in perspective for us tonight, both in time and space. And we're going to keep it moving with our next poet, Lindsay Rockwell, who is poet in residence at the Episcopal Church of Connecticut. She is deeply grateful to grow and learn in this fabulous community of poets, writers, and thinkers. Welcome, Lindsay Rockwell.
Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. And thank you, Michael, for all that you do in this community. And I think actually all three of these poems have been workshopped with many of you guys. So over the last several months, I find myself pondering the unknown a lot. And what has come of that is a series of letters to the unknown. So my first poem is, Dear Unknown, I think I'm falling in love with you. How you lean against the inside of my gaze, shadowless. How you inhabit that space between forefinger and thumb, not instrument or omen, more unheld breath, the hard work of planting and dying done. How you come, go, leave no trace, and I have no way to follow you. But I believe it's this I love most. Your dark fold between gravel and ground, that your quiet gathers strength. And in the painting, you become the frame beyond the frame, taking me past the sea where light and the deluge of day disappears me. I'm not sure what else to say. Maybe just I'm always with you. My head dropped down. L. And this next one is entitled Note to Self. I love how branch whittles blue, and everything that splays has roots. That breath arrives from green, and before that, nebula and muons. How snow holds leopard's trace, and day darkens after undressing sun. That arrows don't fly backwards, and wind has no home. How memories glide winged, and kites rely on sky. I love the sound of the word horse, the animal she is. How she scares me, and I feel small, makes me remember I am. And this last poem, my last poem, is entitled The Curragh. And a curragh is a handmade canoe initially thought to be built in Scotland to take people from inlet to inlet or waterway to waterway. The curragh. Listen to your heart knocking in the gallows of your chest, bewildered and exhausted, as cavalcades of clouds corral the sky, deep forest streams whimper, and a cold, cruel chill ferrets the minds of those we do not understand. Faces etch into a cacophony of hate, slay skin, feather, even stone, and you lie down upon a bed of prayers. Turn, turn, and turn, distant, delicate, and broken. Had you wings, they would not fly. covers they would not warm. There is no east. Scent of wind sometimes takes you home, more often leaves you lost. Listen, your knocking heart, bruised and clamoring wildly, is seeking some instruction. As your gaze trawls the sky, listen. As you bend, become the meadow, listen. When you balance Mercury and fire, wrestle angels' veil of death, and fan the flames of ghost fires left behind, listen. A tide arrives to wake you. You for whom light drops to shadow at your feet, for whom sleep slips endlessly away, and stories left behind leave you inert, belly up. There is a Currach waiting, rocking softly in the dark to paddle you slow and steady with oak oars carved of kindness through mind's invisible cloak that wills its work upon you. For you have dreamed a world of light 1,000,000 times.
Wow. Thank you, Lindsay. You're reminding me that poets, hundreds of years ago were called bards, and part of their job wasn't just to write poetry, but to sing it, because there's so much music in your poetry. So someone wrote to me today, say, come to the event, you don't have to do anything, you just let the poetry wash over you. And I feel like that's what I was doing while you were reading. So thank you, Lindsay. Our next poet is Lynette Yetter, who is another West Coast connection. She's a panpipe playing lesbian Buddhist artist, a Pushcart Prize nominated poet and translator of Latin American Spanish literature. She lives in both Portland, Oregon and La Paz, Bolivia. And she's in the process of publishing a work of Bolivia's most celebrated writer, her translations of Adela Zamudio. So please welcome Lynette Yetter.
I'm so honored to be here, and I'm just seeing Michael on my screen, so I'm kind of disoriented. And I'm so grateful for working with you, Michael, and to be here with everyone. And thank you, Linda Jo, for letting me know like a year ago. And I'll be reading one of my translations of Adela Zamudio, her poem Poeta, and Poet. In labor's noisy fiesta, on the grandiose stage of our century, in the midst of the chaos called struggle for survival, an exotic character appears, a stranger to the businesses of the world, humble and haughty in bearing, and on its forehead the stamp of greatness, undaunted by the laughter of the fool and the vanity of rich men's excess. It crosses the thresholds of salons for the first time, perhaps, flaunting its own manners as the sign, as the sign of unrecognized nobility. Who is it? It's the very same one in rags who walked the sands of Greek isles, whose divine songs, the fragments of a brilliant epic, flung into the wind of ages, are the legacy of genius. It is the same one, a pilgrim on the plains of Gaul, pilgrim who on stormy nights, tired and trembling with cold, knocked on the door of the paternal home and was invited in. With kind concern, and after a hearty meal, entranced the hosts with ballads, legends. It is the same one who next to the grill gate in front of feudal castle walls, plucked hidden beauty from the vibrant and melancholy lute, challenging despots' fury. The disinherited of destiny who, in a wandering and singular path, go collecting laurels, always the same through the centuries and the ages. Instead of the lute and the lyre, wherever she goes, she carries with her an album, her treasure, more valuable than all the treasures of the earth. There is a mysterious fire in her chest, the fire of the idea, sublimated feeling that in the brain reason condenses, and in the clear stream of the word sprouts, filling lofty pages. Furthermore, for that sacrosanct flame in her powerful heart to ignite, it is necessary that she must dive into life's most bitter dregs. To know horrid misfortune and rugged paths, hurt by life's cliffs and thistles, wounded by the shocks of life, that is inspiration. Mysterious flower that only exhales its divine essence after the terrible shocks of violent tempest. That is the work of art. Sacred fire that devouring creates, ripping a soul to pieces, blood of the heart, that is the idea. Oh, bard of pain, you arrive on time, strum the lute, raise your prophetic voice, show the falsehood and misery of the greatness of the present age, lament the harrowing secrets of that unhappy, decrepit generation that, drowning the discomfort that devours it, is satisfied with the laughable triumphs of industry and science. You too, tribute payer to this century, your soul and conscience are ailing. Poet of pain, you arrive on time. Singer of truth, pluck that string. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynette. That was so wonderful to hear a poem from over a century ago, celebrating the work of poets that you've brought to us through your translation. Thank you so much. And I heard the word bard as well, which I had just brought up tonight. So thanks again. Our next poet this evening is Kol Goodstein, who lives and writes in Northampton and feels very grateful for the support and community of the Poetry Critique Meetup community. So welcome, Kol Goodstein.
Thank you, Michael. Trigger warning, women, girls, Republicans, men. This is a poem from 2017. We didn't know it could only get worse. She said Roy Moore took her hand, took his clothes off, mostly, took her clothes off, took her hand. He did not read her fortune. He did not fingerprint her, though he worked for the DA. He did not show her the church and the steeple, or open the doors to show her the people. He took her hand. He did not ask her to dance or offer her string to cradle a cat or teach her new verses to Miss Mary Mac. He undid the buttons all down her back. He didn't see her hands, not a single finger or the small moons rising in her nails, whether or not they were polished or chipped. He only imagined how nicely they'd fit, her hands on his it. He didn't reckon they were attached, the hand to the arm to a girl, the girl to a fact. Fact of the matter is, she kept track. Now, 1979 is a long time ago, and that man's life has been so, oh, what can I say? Righteous. 39 years since then, and she, from all accounts, it sounds, has lived like a hoe. So what if nearly 40 years ago he took her hand that no one wanted to hold and tried to put something good in it? A four-leaf clover, a kind of luck, a rabbit's foot to hold, not remember me when this you see. They say smell is the earliest memory and the last to go. She didn't mention the smell of him, though. I imagine aftershave, detergent, maybe bleach, the smell of clean poured over stink to disguise what's putrid and tumescent, to perfume the blood swollen truth. Oh, moral outrage is so unbecoming in the mouth of Mitch McConnell. Now, they say the candidate needs to keep it in his pants. And if it's true, he must bow out and stop his howling, though the auditor says he's as clean as a hound's tooth. And we all know Mary was a child bride, and look how she gave us Jesus. So quit your belly aching, birth what's put in you by man, made in his image. And her, the daughter of Eve, original sinner, a girl's half devil anyway. And if she hadn't have been idle like that, then she wouldn't have been there, underage and drinking wine, and her divorced 3 times, and him a married man now. When someone dropped his fly, dropped his sweats, unbuckled his overalls, opened his coat, put down his pen, pretended he had no choice but to jam his body against our 8th grade haunches and the lurch and sway and bounce of the subway, we taught each other to say this. After we've mastered how to weave a lanyard, make a blue jean skirt, conjugate French verbs, solve for X, pith a frog, we taught each other the incantation to repel exhibitionists, slimy businessmen, and subway perps. Oh, look, say this loudly and point in his direction. Look, that looks just like a penis, only smaller. This works if there are people around. If not, you need to act crazy. Talk to yourself, pretend you're having an epileptic fit, scratch like you have bed bugs, and try to make yourself vomit. Do anything you can not to be pretty. Go on, try it now.
Thank you, Kol. As you probably heard, Kol writes some of the most intense poetry of anyone in our group, and much appreciated and much needed. Thank you for sharing with us tonight. Our next poet is Kate Snyder. Kate, are you here with us? I didn't see your, see you come in.
I'm here.
You are wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful, great. Then let me continue to introduce Kate Snyder, who lives in the Hudson Valley of New York. Her writing is inspired by exploring big emotions revealed in small quotidian moments. Welcome, Kate Snyder.
Hi, everyone. So glad to be here. This is my first time reading in public. I joined this group during the pandemic in memory of Eli, who had been a coworker of mine at the time of his passing. And I had never sat down to write a poem before that, but was met with such kindness and support from this group that I knew I wanted to show up. And it's been such a source of nourishment. So thank you all very much. These are 3 poems that have all been workshopped with many of you, so they might sound a little familiar. Okay. Respite. The sun speaks in honeyed waves. Tonight, an apricot roasting in its own juices, gradient puddles of sweet syrup spilling over the Hudson. I lay on riverside rocks, rest my head upon a rolled up sweater, and close my eyes. Earlier, a stranger welcomed me into his home. There had been death, his wife yesterday, and there was dying, him from cancer. Every few minutes, a breeze passed through the living room, surrounding us with summer air and the ringing of wind chimes. 3 kittens walked atop his body, perching on 2 thighs and carefully nuzzling against one tender torso. Tomorrow, I will visit again. The day after, again. The next one is called Thank You, Jerry. We sit on the couch, tucked under a worn blanket, and flip through a magazine where you had not long ago read Young, the Zohar, a book on DMT, and the Hebrew Bible. It was yesterday, New Year's Day, when you spoke words the 3 of us understood would be your last, even though we couldn't see the cancer or foresee how this house would carry on without you in it. It was yesterday when you told us you wanted to trip, and so in psychedelic hot chocolate floated burning logs riding on waves that swelled with the strumming of Jerry Garcia and the crackling of the fire we built, which would never be enough to keep you warm. And it was 24 hours ago when you laughed at being together, because who could have imagined a young couple and a dying man getting high, celebrating the new year, mourning the last, preparing to mourn you too. And it was one sunset ago when you said, sitting with you is like looking in a mirror, freeing yourself as if you only had hours left. Turning to my partner, you're the man I wanted to be. And to me, you're the wife I took care of. And you seemed happy, we were all at peace. And when you left, there was us. And the last one I'll share is The Artist. I am centuries of life and decay, dialectic dialogue through cognition and soul. I confront my truth without cowardice. Calamity and cruelty still beget, behold beauty. I learn to relinquish control, unrequited love, the spoken word, a changing body, beauty. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Kate. I'm just struck again how, Yusuf Lateef said, you know, what you have to offer your art is your own unique voice. And so thank you, Kate, for offering your unique voice to us. Next up is Jane Carey. Jane is a published poet and photographer. She's also self-published several musical releases, and she works in the Connecticut Community College system as an associate professor of English. Welcome, Jane Carey.
Thank you so much, Michael. I am very grateful for this opportunity. All right, I'm going to read 5 or 6 poems here. Some are a little bit longer, some are very short and sweet. The first one is called Whatever It Is. We talk, we play, we are. We are whatever it is. Whatever is happening between us, you know, I hope it keeps on happening. We touch and we change each other's lives. The sun, the wind, the sea, the sands of time, you and me. We laugh, we dream, we sigh, living the moments of our lives. Whatever is happening between us, you know, kind of like this, we've touched and we've changed. The sun, the wind, the sea, the sands of time, you and me. Okay, the next one, very short and sweet, turning points in our lives. I think of the bend in the river at 6 Mile Creek, near the tree where the owl lives. Ithaca, 1999. Here and now, I am so glad I live here now. And the thunder rumbles. I don't know if you can hear that. It's pretty cool. Thank you, God. Thank you, fate. Thank you, time. Northampton, 1999. And next one, ancient voices. Ancient voices, they talk to me, whispering stories of the sky and sea. With ashes we fall into the earth, and heavenly songs they sing of rebirth. Only the wind knows where everything goes. Do you know the way I know? Love is the answer to all our woes. Love is a prayer, love is a song, and only with it will we right all our wrongs. Wings of love, wind songs of love. All right, next one, careful now. Days of pureness, days of pure bliss. Are they tears of joy instead of sorrow? Living for today instead of tomorrow? I can see now that you don't really care. So that's nothing new because I'm carefree too. And it all went down without a sound. Can you whisper without a sound? From a whisper to a scream, do you remember that dream? Is your heart full of laughter? Is your heart full of rage? Careful now, don't turn that page. It's not for your eyes to see, and why can't you just let it be? Time to get a grip on reality. And it all went down without a sound. Can you whisper without a sound? From a whisper to a scream, do you remember that dream? Days of pureness, days of pure bliss. Are they tears of joy instead of sorrow? And then something very light to follow that one up. This one is called Pastoral. Pastoral love, into the meadow and make to me love. I've been waiting and wanting for ever so long. I want to hold you so badly, I want to belong. Pastoral love, into the meadow and make to me love. And then finally, beyond the clouds. The rain came in on Monday's cloud, washed us clean, so pure of thought. Tuesday's child saw the light, a blue, blue crystal shining bright. Beyond the clouds and thunder's ocean, your soul shines as pure light. Beyond the clouds, way beyond the clouds. And that's it.
Thank you so much, Jane, and quite good timing, at least for my house, because you're talking about clouds and thunder, and I've got thunder outside and it's starting to rain, so it's like you knew it was coming.
Same here, thank you.
And I love listening to your poetry / lyrics.
Thank you
for sharing those. Next up, Jane Morrison, who is an artist besides poet. She lives in Northampton and is currently working on a memoir of her travels in Greece. So welcome, Jane Morrison. You just have to unmute yourself, Jane.
There. Thank you, Michael. Thank you so much for doing this. And glad to be here and glad you're all here. My first poem is called Dancing at 60. The morning I turned 60, I rose from my bed. The wind caught my feet, whooshing them into the living room. There they began stomping, circling in some familiar ancient rhythm, and me like some wild ancient being. My cat went running from the room. Dancing at 60, the soul forgets the years, but the body remembers the dance. Apology from heaven. One day and 1,000 burning years ago, when toiling, parched and broken fields, the sky opened up and said, "I'm sorry." Those words, needed as the rain, cool and clear, poured down like streams, blessings, watering the sweat-dampened earth. And in coming from above as they were granted, given, what couldn't be given here, sustenance to end the famine of one long and hungry life. Another morning poem. This one's called Morning Misery. Misery, that's the only word for it. The waking in the morning and slamming into the wall of no, no, I don't want to do it. Don't want to get up, take a warm shower, brew the rich coffee that I love. Fucking alarm clock, shut up, smashing the snooze button with my fist. Cat, stop your crying. I can't feed you now. I can't feed myself. Leave me alone. Everyone, please leave me alone. Head pounding, sheets coming undone with my thrashing. The damn birds tweeting outside my window. Please let me go back. Slip back quickly into that place where I lived just a few moments ago. That place of nowhere, no time, no thing. I'm happy there, not knowing. So this poem is a prose poem, and I don't usually write prose poems, but I took a leap into the unknown. It's called Meditation on a Ladybug. The late afternoon was lazy and warm, and I was seeking quiet. I dragged one of the Adirondack chairs across the lawn of the library, away from the busyness and into the cool shade under the oak tree. I sat down, opening my book. Caesar Augustus had just declared war on Antony and Cleopatra and was sending his legions to fight the Egyptians in the battle at Actium. As their fleets began to decimate each other, the traffic on the streets near the library kept getting louder. A mother and her shouting children arrived and settled nearby. Noisy birds were singing off key. It was no use. I was fighting my own losing battle. Closer to home, agitated squirrels were circling my camp. Hordes of flies aimed for my head. Next came the ants, the dreaded creatures making their slow, steady advance. Then, just as Cleopatra, in the height of the battle, suddenly ordered her fleets to turn around and head back to Alexandria, one of these creepy things landed on my arm. Without a thought, I quickly grabbed it in my fingers, about to flick it away, when for some reason I stopped and dropped it instead on the arm of the chair, Looking closely at this little thing, it stumbled and fell, flapping its wings, struggling to regain its balance after such a mighty fall. It was a ladybug, the shiny, round orange shell with the little black dots, antennae, and tiny black feet. When finally she had composed herself, I knew it was a she. She stood for a moment with dignity before walking slowly down the arm of the chair. A ladybug. It was as if I'd never seen one before or heard the name. Ladybug? Why was a bug called a lady? I seem to remember then the ladybug's well-established reputation as a high-class insect. But there was something else, something I couldn't remember. Finally, tiptoeing to the end of the chair, she spread her wings and gracefully flew away. Funny how she just left so quickly without even a word, having no idea how much she had meant to me. As Anthony abandoned his men and followed Cleopatra back to Egypt, he escaped unharmed, but his reputation never recovered. And as for the ladybug, I learned afterwards that she was named Mary after Our Lady Mary and is a symbol of good luck. I knew it was something like that.
Thank you, Jane. Wow, those are so wonderful and so different from the sky speaking to you to the history and the ladybug. So entertaining. Thank you for being here tonight. Our next poet, Ginny Sullivan, who is also a teacher, a garden designer, and a grandparent. Ginny writes about identity, aging, and relationship to home. She's been published in the Arkansas Review, Valley Voices, Silkworm, and Red Leaf Press. Please welcome Ginny Sullivan.
Thank you, Michael. I just got knocked off and I got back on. Very exciting. Just in time. Oh, this makes me realize how many wonderful sessions I've missed, not coming in the recent past. And I just so appreciate all of you, all of your reading and what you put together, Michael. I mean, it's really a feast of words. It's fantastic. I have 3 poems. The first one is part of a river series I'm working on, inspired by Jane Hirschfeld's After the Rise of the Fish. And it's in 2 parts. Wedding Vows. 1. The 2 of them standing in the middle of the river, he in black, she in a bright salmon-colored top, side by side, fishing in a flat wooden skiff. The way the light hits them, just for a moment, I can't see the boat, and they are walking on water. 2. Terns scream, sharp-edged like a paper cut, the river full of fog. All they are is white, their desire, falling upward, falling down onto the face of the water. Fish scatter like grief dissolved in sunlight. Since the terns are hungry and the water is blue, black in the shadows and green in the slanted side ripples flowing outward from boulders on the shore, where they hit the surface again and again. Since morning, in the middle of arriving, is a bloom of light. Since their reflections, since the day opens and closes like breath breathing, since vibrations through water, through air, through light, stir me into their swirling gyre, I too, a hunger, and eagerness shaped by desire. The second poem is called Springtime in Ukraine. And it's not my story. It was told to my son-in-law this April when he was working as a doctor on the border between Poland and Ukraine. And I think of it as his story because it was so full of his feeling when he told it to me. So I don't feel this poem is finished because I haven't figured out how to put this backstory into the poem, but I'm going to give you the story. If I can find it. Springtime in Ukraine. Amid a springtide of Russian bombs, the moon floats in a sky worn from war. An 80-year-old woman gathers her things and braves the space outside her apartment door. She doesn't want to leave and may be shot, but Mariupol's under siege. She has nothing to eat, no water, fuel, electricity. She calibrates the distance and runs to the arms of a Russian soldier. She carries one suitcase, her cache of grief, and $20,000. He doesn't shoot. In the language they both speak, he agrees to get her out, bribes the sentry at the Russian checkpoint, gives her back 2,000 of the dollars she pressed into his hand. You will need this, he says, pockets the rest and walks away. I wish I could go with you. Say I was your son. After some days, she enters Poland alone, struggling with a terrible guilt. She should have taken children with her. She couldn't take children with her because she expected to be shot. She will go to Israel. She considers how far from Poland to Tel Aviv, from Ukraine to the moon, how long it will take to get there, what it has cost. My last poem is Ancient Knowledge. It's 2 stanzas, each with 7 lines, so it's almost a sonnet. Ancient Knowledge. I had walked the beach alone for miles when my eyes connected with the seals, his bullet head bobbing, bladder rack washing onto the sand. Blue-black, glistening, he seemed to watch me stoop to retrieve a mermaid's purse, empty now, its spiny hooks latched to a raft of seaweed. Flung by its mother into the immense green water, it had darkened. The embryo within had quickened, then unfurled its wings to become a miniature skate. I hold it in my hand, and the day quickens, conspires to become an ancient cradle, propelled through time by longing and desire. Thank you.
Thank you, Ginny. It's so wonderful to hear your poetic voice again. And thank you particularly, well, it's always so lyrical. And I want to thank you especially for bringing the story from the Ukraine to us tonight.
Thank you.
Our next poet is E. Hynes, who lives in Northampton and Provincetown. She's currently in between many places and many things, she says. She's long time been a secret writer who recently decided to claim that past while continuing her long-term passion in creating visual art. And she is working to combine those two. So please welcome E. Hynes.
Thank you, Michael. I want to say I'm really grateful for all the hard work you do and your kindness to me in the poetry critiques. I'm very grateful for my chance tonight to read publicly for the first time. And I'm grateful to all the poets tonight who I've worked with and who I haven't. Just continue to learn, and I thank you all. Okay, Summer shed, stepping into the warmed summer shed, blinding dark danger, flashing on shards of a broken window, nest for a snake, slowly shedding its useless skin, bequeathing its past to the gray earth floor. I nearly step on the now frenzied snake, snapping wildly in the air. Have I intruded on some sacred ritual, seen a nakedness not meant for me? Between my skin and muscle, quivering with fear and reverence, remembering my own sinuous path, duplicitous, double-blinded, delayed, escaping my fumbling human step. The now altered snake slips beneath the fractured wall, and only then do I dare to reach, to touch the ghost skin cold, wet remnant, beautiful danger, startled by eyes preserved in the molded cast-off skin. Turning, I catch pieces of myself in a broken mirror on the exit wall, flashing sunlight distorting my own queer body, turning at the threshold. Suddenly, between the near ocean, squalling and rough, and the wooded dune behind the shed, quietly active, coyotes in their shaggy fur softly whimpering, foxes snapping branches under small, soft feet, both braving the growling hungers that drive them desperately into the day, birds' wings panicking, singing I've never heard. Suddenly, I understand, all we hunters and prey, moving in a silence of violence to remain invisible, to continue in our changings. Caught between the snake and the wild hill, unable to see, ocean salt on my lips, tongue, only the bird song seems safe. Perhaps now it lies beneath the house, listening for my deadly steps, listening for vibrations of my voice. Is my breath enough to startle it? I want to whisper to her in the dark, let her tell me her secrets. As in myths, will I, like Tiresias, be blinded, transformed into a man by some angry god visiting from beyond, a lover who leaves behind the naked empty? Or have I mistaken all of this for a long, complicated sentence in a language I cannot speak? Forget past hungers, memory thrives when fed. A body remembers the rituals of gender, like skin's unthinking movement, but a body can break, take on the skin of an other. At the edges of the body, the world lies, the gesture, the motion of the mouth, amnesia of desire, performing, 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 foot out, hip follows, the turn of it. This last one is, it's a Pantone. I've been working with forms, so Freudian's slip. When I think about desire and the objects of affection, I feel loss and complication, grieving for a body I have never known, carrying it only under the lids of my eyes. I feel loss and complication. And it is said language is born of absence, carrying it only under the lids of my eyes. Does absence birth the language of desire? It is said language is born of absence, like Oedipus blinded by his mother. Does absence birth the language of desire? Mourning becomes the suspected loss, like Oedipus blinded by his mother. In the exaggerations of time, mourning becomes the suspected loss, slips off the end of my tongue like a riddle. In the exaggerations of time, grieving for a body I have never known, slips off the end of my tongue like a riddle when I think about desire and the objects of affection.
Thank you so much, E. Thank you for being here tonight. And I definitely feel in that, especially in that first poem, that you're not just a visual writer, a visual artist, you're also a visual writer. Thank you for bringing us into your world.
Thanks, Michael.
Our next writer is Eileen Gloster, who once started and ran the Papyri bookstore in North Adams, Massachusetts, where she hosted poetry jams and monthly readings. She still lives and works there in North Adams, where her grandparents worked as textile printers. She's just a stone's throw from Mass Mocha, and she's with us tonight, Eileen Gloster.
Hi, thank you. I just feel like I need a moment. That was so amazing, that poetry. Wow. I thought I was going to read about Mass Mocha, which is why I mentioned that, but I'm not. I am going to read. I want to thank you, though, so much as well. I feel so grateful to be with this group of people. And Michael, we keep saying it, but it's so true. Thank you for all this. The first poem I did not write during this group, but we did workshop it. It's actually something I wrote about 30 years ago. A persona poem after I attended a pro-choice rally in DC that feels sort of newly relevant. So I'm going to read that. And then I think I'm going to read two other poems that are sort of me trying to think about and understand and write about race a little bit. So 3 poems. Choose. Trees hint their sweet promise. My belly hides its own. You, too distant still to kick or taste or see. Dreaming, you wait blind and trusting in my surprised womb. The dreams I have will remain dreams if I remain your shelter. Yet you have claimed your space, sleep below my heart as cherries sleep in April trees. I hear the marchers shout, women desperate to control at least their bodies. A woman lifts a coat hanger. I shiver but do not know for whom. Bells ring their brute argument. I am rooted to this curb, mute and still, unwilling to stop my sisters, though they would still your sisters' voiceless pleas to see this greening world, to taste its sweet red fruit. And the second one is very short. White woman, white town. I want to believe mine is the last generation of good folk like me, pretending we don't feel just a little bit pleased with ourselves each time we treat that Black man or woman just like anyone else. And then my last poem is called Virus, and it's in 3 parts. Virus, 1, safe, alone. I kneel in child's pose. Exhale, inhale, hold. Let everything out. My breath, suddenly suspect, hangs in the empty air. 2, our eyes do all the work now. At the grocery, trapped, I glance over and down. My blue eyes ask, her old ones soften. I assume consent, breathe gently as I pass, making dangerous this space between red taped lines. 3, the reverend and rabbi pray. The young Black woman shuts her eyes and speaks more names than her years. Tamir Rice, George Floyd, Sandra Bland. No justice, yet she tells us to pass the peace, says, look at your neighbor, says, see the eyes that have cried, so we look, flash signs of peace, press palms together, ready ourselves. Otha starts his drum, steady, insistent, 3 fast, 2 slow, together we breathe, together we breathe. Told to chant softly behind our masks so as not to spread this virus. We march down Columbus to the park and the drumming finally stops. We kneel as it starts once more, now so slowly, 8 muffled blows, 1 long minute at a time. Then faster the drum, our hearts beat 46 more, and we rise to do the work because we can breathe. Inhale, exhale, take everything in, hold our suspect breath. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. That's great reading. You, at one point, you said claim your space. And I feel like you and all the writers, that's something that we all do as writers in writing and in sharing, that we claim our space, but also together as a community, we create a space that works together at the same time. Our next writer tonight is Dina Friedman, coming to us from Hadley. She has been published in many literary journals. She's received 2 Pushcart Prize nominations. She's also published 2 young adult novels, Escaping into the Night and Playing Dad's Song. And she's also published a book of poetry, Wolf in the Suitcase. So please welcome Dina Friedman.
Thanks. So I have an anti-love poem and then 2 love poems. And I'm going to read the anti-love poem first, appropriately titled Valentine's Day. And this is one I brought to the meetup. And thank you for the community, the feedback. It's just been wonderful to connect with so many writers in so many ways. Valentine's Day. Race walk to the drugstore to buy a card for the ex-boyfriend, currently not so ex. It's complicated, like the ice on the cracked sidewalk, murky with a few bright swirls. Summon faith in the city's public works. By now it must be salted, safe enough to hang a sharp swerve past the slow bodies lumbering in front, who, unlike you, are paying attention to balance. Listen as your bones crunch, leaving a crack like the gap between your brother's front teeth, the memory of facing off on either side of the wishbone, waiting for the snap to judge the victor. Remember, too, your lessons from yoga, the hip sockets lower than the watery pelvis, where emotions stored, a connection leading all the way down to the femur. Lie flat on the sidewalk as ice melts from your body's warmth and water seeps into your coat fibers. When the kind man asks if you can stand up, say no. If you'd stood up for yourself, you wouldn't have been buying a Valentine for the complicated boyfriend who comes 3,000 miles to take you home after the week in the hospital, your casted leg suspended in air, crotch open to the elements. How he gloats at your helplessness, brings you water, hands you your crutch so you can stand, femur unplugged to your hips' welcoming sockets, joints taut like a door against the wind. And the second poem I'm going to read is called Cows. I have fallen in love with the cows, drooling their dreams on the electric fence. My child, in a scientific experiment, once played the music. Did the cows prefer oboe or violin, or human singing, or nothing? I think the cows prefer cello, a sound that speaks in tones they know, but my child couldn't play the cello. Their voice still cracked the gap between baritone and soprano. So now you think you know the gender of my child, who once folded their toddler body to sleep in a plate of pizza, a time when gender shouldn't have mattered, but we already dressed them as if it did. I have fallen in love again and again with this child now grown who likes purple lipstick, though there's something so cow-like about lips, the wonder of cuds and what the mouth holds in. The cows showed no preference for oboe or violin. And why should they cherry pick this unasked for gift of music? Both instruments were playing the same song. And the last poem I'm going to read is called Amen. I believe in dirt, the promise of onion before it bulbs, and the kale's resolve to never succumb to killer frost. I believe in leaves, defiant despite holes bored by hungry bugs. I believe in the cycle of calcified shells and the power of compost to make things right, in raptors snoozing in their sky-high nests, in corn stubble, rotting radishes making space for next year's seeds. I believe in flowers that withstand the cold and the warm mud cradled in the creases of my calloused skin. I believe in digging and fireflies and pulling mint in the moonlight. I believe in singing wildly the crickety sounds of the night.
Thank you, Dina. That was so wonderful. It's amazing how every poet is like just as amazing as the one before. What an amazing group. I love how your poetry is so surprising, Dina. You use everything. There's like no holds barred, and you never know what's going to happen next. So thank you so much. Our next poet of the evening, we have 5 poets still to come. And thanks everyone for being so ready and so excellent with all your readings. We're going to welcome now Darlene Elias, who is an emerging writer and poet in Western Mass. She is a Hawaiian Barakua anti-colonial feminist who uses the art of the spoken word to elevate and validate her own experience and that of the diaspora. She lives in Holyoke, a sister pueblo of Puerto Rico, with her partner and dogs. Welcome, Darlene.
Hi, Michael. Thank you so much for inviting me to this forum. I've met Michael several times in the community since we live in the same community. I've been to the poetry meetup a couple times, very inspiring, very nurturing. I also do the prose meetup with Celia Jeffries, another wonderful facilitator, very good. Straw Dog Writers is on the money. So I've been inspired, and this is kind of a combination of prose poems, and I'm reading a few of them, okay? So the first one is entitled, Roses Are the Color of Blood. I think about the blood that was spilled by my ancestors. Taínos were plenty in the turn of the 14th century until Spaniards invaded my country. They were descendants of the Arawak nation and lived in the Borinquen freely. Over 1 million populated the Caribbean island. Only a few thousand survived the brutality of the bourgeoisie. I imagined the blood that flowed in the rivers, oceans, and seas, the cries in the mountains and whispers of trees. Why is this happening to me? Asked the Taíno to the sun god with tears flowing. Is not the color of my blood the same as Spanish royalty? I close my eyes. I see Taínas with roses in their hair, bearing fruit in the garden of life, populating with magnificence and glory. Someday, you too will see. Roses are the color of blood, the same that gives life to you and me. La pura pepa, the pure seed. The truth is, the seed wasn't planted in the Garden of Eve. It was planted in New York City, in a brownstone in the middle of high rises in concrete. Knowledge was learned from the streets and many years of suffering. My ancestors lived freely and abundantly until Americans ravaged and pillaged the island of Puerto Rico forcefully. My abuela traveled by ship to the Statue of Liberty for a chance to realize her dreams. Rita Moreno sang, I want to live in America. Abuela, like Rita, wanted the same trajectory. My abuelo joined the service in Honolulu gleefully. He met Abuela in Las Vegas while she was trying to become an actriz. America was not ready for the talented acting of Abuela Esperanza. Instead, she was forced to live out her life working in factories, sewing and making cigarettes to support her family. You know the history. Esperanza! My skin is brown. It has melanin, and when I'm out in the sun, my skin gets dark as a golden crown. I love the summer because it's when I'm the most darkest. The sun makes me glow and my heart doesn't skip a beat. Afro, Boricua, Taina, Chula. You know how you feel when you keep it real. You know when you let your hair flow and you let it all go, nothing else competes. Take a picture, put it on your phone. Look at it the next time you feel defeat. Pick yourself up, brush yourself off, let yourself know that you are a beautiful queen. This much I know for sure. I wake up to the sun and go to sleep with the moon and the stars. I'm a tropical girl. I prefer the beach and ocean breezes to pine trees and deep freezes. If I had my choice, I'd wake up in San Juan in a hammock under a coconut palm. I'd go to sleep every day with the chirping cookies and the stars and moonlight shining down on me. The sweet dream of a free Puerto Rico would keep me in a deep sleep until it became a reality. This I know for sure. When I wake up, my country would no longer be a colony, as it would be independent and free. My people would be crying, oh so joyfully, for their newfound liberty. And for me, the sun forever will shine brightly. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Darlene. I'm so glad that you came to read your poetry. There's such a drive and power behind it. So
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Our next poet is actually the our technology assistant that's behind all of the Zoom, and the person who sent all your links tonight. It's also a poet in our poetry critique meetup. It's David Ferland. He's a writer from East Hampton, Massachusetts, and he also has a career teaching orientation and mobility to people who are blind. So please welcome David Ferland.
Thanks, Michael. Very grateful for the group, which got me writing poetry again for the first time since college. So thank you to everybody. I have 3 poems. No Man's Land. Camped alone near Comanche Peak, I walked the burned forest from last summer's hourglass fire. Shorn black trees stark against dusk sky, down the hill, dirt road, in shadow watching as I set foot to cross the cougar. I start to run. The cougar perks, keen to chase. I face it, darker brown than imagined, blends with lodgepole pine shadows, hunched on haunches, too alert. I back away, slow, raise my arms, wave them, yell, call in an airstrike from nearby croaking ravens. Too smart, they fly away. 2 a.m. in my tent, the cougar out there. All the advice, more afraid of you. If attacked, fight back. No comfort. I can wait no longer, unzip the tent, rasping crescendo against white noise rush of nearby Cashindaputa River. Step away, piss into the black. The cougar could be 5 feet away or 5 miles. This next one is called Stained Glass Desert Memory. 14 times I got punched in the face. Everything looked like stained glass stations of the cross, grim potentates and mourning crowds, sponge soaked with wine and the sword thrust to Jesus's side to speed things up. They don't like bodies hanging through the weekend. He was doomed as soon as he messed with the bankers. They forget nothing. But the worship halls are always bizarre bazaars where rote prayers are traded for paradise. In my childhood church, ski-tan folk in fur and leather sang how the meek would inherit the earth. It's essential we learn to pray in the desert. There's a lot of it on our tumble-down planet, more on the way. Black knee-wall mountains line horizons. Countless mesquite hillocks with cracked off branches strewn like bleached gray bones around thousands of altars. Choose one and kneel in wind-rippled sand. Without adornment, it's easy to know Earth as rock moat arcing through space, dust shaken from an ancient cosmic rug. Visitations while feeling awful and stuck but staying busy. They did a stroke test in the morning, then sent me home. My fourth smile didn't droop. During my afternoon hike, the ghost of David W. visits. I caress a frozen waterfall, listen to one of his 1,000 plans. February air, not cold enough to freeze tears. Next morning, I lie in bed, close my eyes, breathe. Aunt Anne appears, my favorite from my mother's family of nuns. She labeled all the trees at Holy Family College. Her little brass placards still there, tarnished, subsumed by bark. Her face suddenly front and center with her casual ash habit and veil. Later, I repair a rain gutter, fix the snowblower. Crawling pains in my left arm and face tingles, and Jesus, when I look at WebMD, I should go back to the ER, but they'll just send me home again. Over on YouTube, the TED Talk therapist preaches vulnerability. Strong spine, soft chest, untamable heart, all that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David, for lending your voice to us tonight. And also your tech skills too. We really appreciate it. Our next poet is coming to us from Franklin County, Candace Curran, the author of Playing in Rex from Haley's Publishing. And she's finishing her second full-length collection this year. The late author Robert Cormier said of Candace's writing, startling images poised between ache and ecstasy. Please welcome Candace Curran.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael and David and Straw Dog and the Northampton Center for the Arts. Thanks, David, for all the support and encouragement you give us, how you make each of us feel like we are something very special, like we have something very special. And of course, to all you Carpenter poets in the group that, helped to build these poems. The first poem is called House Arrest. He sees us, a collective, prisoners to lockdown, in the moon's tractor pull, in the tides, caught up in our cycles, phases, bitching, bleeding, on cue until dismantled. You could be the moon, dear one, almighty, always watching with a shiner on the one you love, reminding me of another song. How did it? Oh yes, with every move, every breath you take. To be heard. The strangled tangle to get silence to speak. The struggle and mangle, tickle and bark. the flirt and hope to get words to stick to an interpreter's ear, a reader of signs and symbols that meld but disappear into ether from the caves they came, echolocating, bouncing, they boomerang back beyond human range to fan the ears of whispering bats with that wanting and not to be heard. My newest collection has a lot to do with the pandemic and domestics and how people were, in many cases, became prisoners to their abusers in this time. On the threshold, here in a lazy dog's early spring, Play-Doh clouds shape-shifting, drop shadows of aircraft on the slopes of our hilltown tops, to stutter out later in the hypnic jerk of nap dreams, where our lost animals never owned search for us to carry them, red light, green light, on some other plane. And again, in the middle of our evening dark murder mysteries, the oncoming sound of low-flying planes alerting, so that we stop, look, take shelter in each other's eyes because it's so close, dispersed in our backyard. How many times removed in the monopoly of a world's real estate, but here now, broadcasting its barbed seeds of war. Broadcasting its barbed seeds of war. And my last poem is The Old Songs, and it's after a photograph by M.A. Murphy, where in British Columbia, children are climbing wooden poles, jumping up and off and diving into the water, and behind them is mountains with snow and ice on them, and it's just so beautiful and ekphrastic. The old songs hover where we hang briefly midair and let go, heart's vibrations causing rings and rungs as we sink to mountains' underbellies and rise slowly skyward, where the gods nodding birth it from silt bottoms and pebble shores to green islands up to the iced mountains tips vibrating, where the birds take it up into legend, the gods lapping, laughing, unable to keep from smiling in waves, singing again in hoops and loops. A happiness we bring home, lay on the kitchen table as an offering, where all the stories are told, airborne again and again. Thank you.
That was wonderful, Candace. I was talking with a Danish writer recently, and who's written 60 books, and he said, you know what the key to writing is? It's music. And I could really feel that in your reading, Candace. Not so much not just the lyricism of the words, but the rhythm as well in the line. So thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Our next writer, Burleigh Muten, lives in Shutesbury, Massachusetts. She's the author of Miss Emily, a verse novel about Emily Dickinson and the children in her life. And I actually have it right here. It's an excellent book. I highly recommend it. Burleigh's poetry has been included in anthologies as well as journals like Meat for Tea, the Silver Birch Press's I'm Still Waiting, and the CDC Poetry Project. Please welcome Burleigh Muten.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you everyone for using your voices. I'd like to read two poems about two parts of my life. The first one is, of course, about writing. Beginner's luck. We were near the top of Erie Boulevard, the former colonial canal, the widest, longest street in town, on our way all afternoon, hot and really ready for a glass of elderberry wine in Nikolaus's German dining room. Thumb on the latch, floor creaking, a few attentive aproned old men and us. A breezy, sunny day, talking and walking all over town on our way up Erie Boulevard. The low sun warmly falling, illuminating a Parker 51, its maroon barrel, its iconic silver arrow clip winking at me as if the pen had been placed there deliberately for me to find. Without a sound, a fairy or a puka must have been here moments before, knowing we were walking and talking all over town. Two slender teenage giggling girls, one reaching for the pen, no ordinary prize. Picking up the pen, looking all around, the widest, longest street in town. Here you are, kid, said someone. This Parker 51, the world's most wanted fountain pen, is for you. All the words that you will write start here. And the second poem stems from the days when I was a kindergarten teacher. It's called Everyday Negotiations. I zip their coats, tuck snow pants tightly into boots, open gloves for little fingers to wiggle down inside. I choose their books and give them words, A, an, at, be, can, go, to ease their way. I kneel to meet their eyes and give them my lap, my smiles, and sometimes my sternest voice. This is not a meeting where anyone can interrupt. We are trying to figure out how to share the new wagon. Thank you.
That's wonderful, Burleigh. I'm reminded, probably everyone has a story like yours of the pen where whether it was a person or someone that gave us inspiration or permission to try our hand at writing. And that is a memory that I think that many of us value. So thank you for bringing that into the forum tonight. And our final poet of the evening, believe it or not, it has to end sometime. Our next poet is Adin Thayer. Her poetry explores how nature's power and beauty and lawfulness affects how people behave. And her writing is informed by working in Rwanda over the past 20 years, as well as by moments of everyday life when awareness flashes and ordinary experience expands. So please welcome Adin Thayer.
Thank you. Somehow inexplicably, I omitted from my bio that in 2021, a press in California published my book called The Close World. And it's kind of a simple title, but it merges two worlds that that we all inhabit. The world that immediately surrounds us, both the natural world and the constructed world, and the world that we share on our planet, which we bring as close to us as we choose to. So the first poem is from that small, very local world, and it's about my cat, who's here somewhere with me. It's called Frances Needs to Bite. She wants to bite me for lack of a bird. Yesterday, she drew blood on my arm. I look at her cat eyes and of course, see no love. Love is for dogs. I could watch her exquisite poise all day, watch her mind hunt the robin, preening on a sycamore branch hanging by the porch screen. Tail twitch, teeth click. Desire, she shows, is instinct. To live with an animal more wild than me is a comfort on days when small tempests blow and drench me to the tips of my extremities. I will always hunt for home, even in my home, as she does, moving from porch railing to dining room table, in proximity to me, or absent for hours, not answering. Needing me only for food and caresses, she reminds me to take affection as it comes and savor the morning sky, since I might die going up the stairs and wouldn't want to account in the afterlife for a habit of fretting that outweighed the moments I stood still in fields, the flowers of autumn everywhere. The next poem is a kind of a radical shift of context. It's about two neighbors in Rwanda. And the one thing I'll say to contextualize it is that the Rwandan government has done an unprecedented and remarkable job of encouraging and supporting and urging and almost forcing Rwandans to reconcile with each other and with their shared past. So this is called Neighbors. In 1994, when every choice was forced, he killed her children. She had run with the youngest as he entered the yard and crouched under sorghum. This morning, a coral-breasted bird sits in the eucalyptus, her liquid solo lifting darkness from the garden. The rains should come soon, pounding banana trees and tin roofs. Today, he hoes rows for beans and corn. She wrings out the blue uniform her daughter wears to school and hangs it over the hedge. The field he's planting belongs to her. At church, she hears words, atonement, forgiveness, a pair of gestures some accomplish. She sings. The rows stretch back behind her house, corn and beans hoed in where the sorghum was. He sits in the dim, late afternoon, waiting for rain, his old feet cracked, and drinks banana beer. And in honor of the sweat streaming down my face, I'm going to read a short poem that takes place in winter. Basic trust. Rain packed weight on the snow. The neighbors snow blew the sidewalk, and I heaved a bent shovel in the driveway. It was a nondescript snow day, limp, gray, with occasional gusts, but it wasn't frigid, and it was white, so the trees' bones were drawn extra dark. As every day, I looked into the crowns of white pine and between the arms of the oaks, rasping their stiff leaves. I imagined myself part child of a tree, taken up at the end of a thinking day into the arms of the oaks. I would fall into rest as a natural state for the first time. It would be a perfect life. My trust at last in earth's seasons, not mine, held in the arms of elders while I slept. And this is the last poem I'll read. It's about reading to my grandson, Finn, who was 4 years old at the time I wrote the poem. Reading to Finn. And there's an epigraph. On Thursday, when Imogene woke up, she found she'd grown antlers. David Small, Imogene's antlers. On every page, she faces the obstacle as though it isn't one. Caught on the chandelier, banging sideways through the door. The cook hangs donuts on each branch and birds come. Everyone's curious except her mother, who faints and faints and has to be carried to bed. And I think as I read, Finn, this is how the world shows you motherhood. Let me tell you. But what would I say? Let me tell you, it tears your heart out? No, that's a secret you try to keep while it grows back. Not innocent, not light, but oh, it grows back full. Thank you.
Thank you to Adin. Wonderful work. I love how you're exploring bringing us those wide environments and also the close environments too, like you were talking about. And this has been such a full evening, and all the readings. I mean, the quality of the body of this creative group is just incredible and can stand up to anybody writing in the English language, as far as I'm concerned. So thanks to all of you writers who put your time and your energy into your art so we all can benefit from it. I was smiling so many times tonight at the ingenious use of your language and stories. And thanks to all who came to listen and support us and share in the fruits of our community. I was reflecting today on how I joined Straw Dogs and I became affiliate. I'm also a board member of the Center for the Arts, and that becoming a member of a community provides a kind of a platform. And all of you now, are part of that, and you have a platform too. And so I encourage all of you to expand your community, keep participating in your community, and that you will reap the benefits of that. Thanks again to Straw Dog Writers, to the Center for the Arts. And I've been your host for tonight, Michael Favala Goldman. So long, everyone. Take care. The event is now officially over. I will keep the Zoom room open for a few minutes in case anyone wants to chat a little bit or ask someone where to get a book or whatever. But thank you all so much for being here. It was my pleasure to moderate tonight.
Thank you, Michael.